Of course, it's been a 12 months where every single country around the world has had to contend with COVID. Are you sensing a sort of fatigue? Are countries reluctant to intervene in Myanmar because they're dealing with these huge economic and health problems back home?
I do think that that is one issue and a significant one. The COVID pandemic has been overwhelming in international affairs over the last 12 months, and it will continue so for the foreseeable future. But unfortunately, the global community's failure to deal adequately with the Myanmar military long precedes COVID. This is a very long-standing issue. It's not just a recent one. Australia now needs to find its voice, but also to find the will to undertake the actions that are necessary to send a very clear message to the military, with the support of ASEAN states, that this kind of behaviour is no longer going to be tolerated. It's been accepted for far too long.
We've seen some fine and unequivocal words from the Australian government, but what does it need to do now? Because they don't seem to have had any effect on that military so far.
Well, it needs to stand with like-minded states in taking action of an economic kind. That means extending the sanctions to the top military leaders, but even more importantly, imposing sanctions on the military's major businesses. The military in Myanmar funds itself through business activities. That fosters corruption on the one hand, and secondly, human rights violations because it provides off-budget resources for the military to undertake its operations. I was a member of the United Nations fact-finding mission on Myanmar in 2017 to 2019. And during that period, we recommended consistently an economic boycott, economic sanctioning of the military's businesses in Myanmar. And no one listened. At last, 2 to 3 years later, we're starting to see that our recommendations are being accepted. The United States, the United Kingdom, and this week the European Union have acted on those recommendations. It's long past time for Australia to do the same.
But Australia has not. Which country has the most leverage in Myanmar?
That's difficult to say because the generals historically have thumbed their nose at everybody. Certainly, China has significant leverage. China is a next door neighbour, quite literally. There's a very long common border. The EU and the United States are important trading partners and security partners. ASEAN perhaps is the most important grouping of states. Myanmar is a member of ASEAN. So we should be strongly working with all of those states, including China, to find a peaceful solution to the crisis in Myanmar. We are all going to suffer the consequences if Myanmar becomes a failed state. And so it's essential that there is collective international action to address the crisis.